Hi, welcome to my channel Tipsorapod. My name is Anand Patnaik. In this video, I'm going to talk about options for having PostgreSQL on Azure. Hi, I'm going to talk about PostgreSQL on Azure. Now, PostgreSQL is a popular open source database. Many people prefer to use the open source database for its flexibility and cost effectiveness. On Azure, you get first class support for PostgreSQL because of the managed service and because tight integration with all the Azure services and all the core services available on Azure, like monitoring, cost. Now, you have different ways to deploy a PostgreSQL. Of course, on prem, you can deploy PostgreSQL on your physical server where you get to manage the hardware, the software, and the database. On Azure, you have the option of IaaS, which is you can get an Azure VM and then install Postgre on it. In that case, anything OS above is your responsibility, and the hardware, including the networking and storage, is Microsoft responsibility. Then the other option is PaaS, which is platform as a service, where you get the database. So you don't get access to the OS level, you don't get access to hardware. So hardware, OS, the backup recovery, the patching, everything becomes Microsoft responsibility, and you get to just manage your database. Now, I'll be doing a demo later. I won't talk about IaaS installing the software and stuff. I'll talk about the two options we have for PaaS in Azure for PostgreSQL. Of course, using PaaS on Azure has an advantage. There was a study done. It showed that people are recording benefits of up to 11.6 million by using PaaS. Now, on Azure, being a PaaS service, it takes advantage of all of the native Azure services like security, the role-based access control, the high availability with availability zones, the global reach. Azure has multiple regions. You get most compliance certifications. You get to scale out to multiple databases, multiple replications across multiple regions and availability zones. There are three options for a pass on for PostgreSQL on Azure. There is the Azure database for PostgreSQL flexible server. This is the relational database. If you use a single server on prem, this is going to be equivalent of that. And then there is Azure Cosmos DB for PostgreSQL, which is the distributed version of PostgreSQL. This is the database that comes with multiple nodes. So if you need to scale your database horizontally and have geo replication, if you need to do a scaled out transaction, that's when you would use Azure Cosmos DB for PostgreSQL. There is also Azure Arc enabled PostgreSQL. Azure Arc is a software that you can install on your data center that would make your on-prem data center be available to operate like an Azure resource. So using Azure Arc, you can install PostgreSQL on your on-prem and have Azure Arc and still manage it like you would manage PostgreSQL on Azure. There are two main reasons why people use PostgreSQL and Azure. First is, of course, migration. If you have a PostgreSQL or another database that you want to migrate to Azure, into Postgre, definitely, that's an option. Many people migrate because they have a hardware refresh due on their data center, or the data center is not scaling, so they want to move their application to Azure. Or the other option is cloud native application development on Azure. So when you're on Azure, you might want to take advantage of the native cloud features to build an application from scratch on Azure. When it comes to migration, there are two types of migration. There is homogeneous migration, and then there is Oracle to Postgre migration. The homogeneous migration is the traditional migration, which is you have a PostgreSQL on-prem and you are migrating to Azure and deploying the PostgreSQL in Azure, or using the PaaS version of PostgreSQL in Azure. The PaaS version of PostgreSQL in Azure comes with 99.99% SLA. SLA is service level agreement. That's the guarantee that Microsoft says that the database would be up. If you can prove that it was up for less than that, you could get some financial compensation. There is also another case where you want to migrate from Oracle to Postgre. Both Oracle and Postgre are relational databases, so they are compatible in many ways. Many people migrate from Oracle to Postgre to save cost, so that's definitely an option to consider. Now, when it comes to cloud native applications, there are three types of application. There is the transactional application, which is the most common. If you're building a transactional application, PostgreSQL is ACID compliant transactional databases, a database that can be used. And then there is geospatial awareness. PostgreSQL has a GIS type of column which helps you build a GIS type of application using PostgreSQL, and then you can also do a multi-tenant SaaS application. Now, the transactional application, like I said, because of the PostgreSQL being ACID compliant with its time series and JSONB type of data available in PostgreSQL as columns data type, definitely that makes it a good candidate for transactional application. For geospatial application, again, those time series JSONB and PostGIS type of data type in your table columns, help you create that spatial aware application where you can have geolocations within your database. For multi-tenant SaaS development, you can have multiple PostgreSQL for different tenant, but your SaaS can support multi-tenant, so creating that multi-tenant SaaS application becomes easy with PostgreSQL. So that's the end of presentation. Now let's go to the Azure portal and see how we can create PostgreSQL on Azure. Now, I'm not going to go over the IaaS option. I'm going to talk about the two PaaS option on Azure. So if you go under the database and create resource, you see Azure database for PostgreSQL here. This is your PostgreSQL flexible server. So if you click create, you select your subscription, you give it a resource group, and you can give your server name. You can select the different version of. So one nice thing here is that you get to select the PostgreSQL version number, which means that if you want to go with a lower version, you can. And once you select a particular version, you can then decide later when you want to upgrade, because many people ask me, I have to use a particular version of PostgreSQL. If I go on Azure and use the past version, do I have to use the latest version? No, you can decide which version you want to start with, and even on PaaS you get that version, so your application will be compatible with Postgre, and you have full flexibility on when you want to upgrade to the higher version. Another advantage of the flexible server on Azure is that you get to select your compute and storage separately. For example, if I go into configure server, I can say in compute here I can select burst table. If I select burst table, then I can have my database compute work at whatever level I set. But then if I use less than the capacity, it would accumulate the credit, and whenever I want, my workload increases, it would use out of the credit, so it doesn't charge me for the max use. It kind of averages it out, so that's more cost effective. You can do general purpose, which is a more balanced configuration. You can do memory optimized, where you get a higher CPU to memory ratio, which is useful for if your database is going to have more joins. You can select either AMD or Intel CPU. This does not affect the cost. It's just a matter of preference. You can select the particular type of VM that you want based on the specs that match your requirement. You can select the type of storage. You can select the storage size. You can select the performance tier, which gives you the IOPS. You can get up to 7500 IOPS, right? You can schedule like storage to auto grow. So, as your usage increases, the storage grows with it. You can select a high availability so that you would enable availability zones. The availability zones are multiple data centers within a zone, which if you have your database in an availability zone, it would replicate across all zones. And then if one zone is down, it would just redirect traffic to the other database which is replicated in the other zone. So your database will be more highly available and is kind of immune to the failure of a zone. You can set up how many days of backup retention you want, all the way to up to 35. Minimum is 7. Your backup can be zone redundant. You can also do zero redundant, which will allow you to replicate your database into another region that we can later use for disaster recovery. Now, I'm not going to go through selecting this since I have already created this database. So I'll just go to that. Once you go to your flexible server database that you created, you can you see a basic information like your server name. So you can click on activity log, and you get to see basic log around when the firewall updated, the logins, restarts, stuff like that. In access control, you get to add different user and add role based access control. You can use tags to kind of give it a particular label so that later on when you are doing a cost reporting, you can filter on those tags to kind of narrow down which database or which particular resource is costing you how much. Postgres single server was a legacy server that was available in Azure. If you're migrating from single server, you can use this migration tool to migrate from single server to flexible server. Even though you selected your compute and storage, you still have the ability to change it here. Under networking, you can select private access. You can do networking firewall. Under database, it shows you all the different databases that are available. Under connect, you see different connection strings. For example, if you want to connect from the browser, like you can copy this, you can start a cloud cell, and you can just paste this code, and it will connect to your PostgreSQL. For example, if I just paste this here and enter my password, now I'm in my Postgre, right? But a typical use is that people use tool like PGAdmin. So if you look here, it gives you the instruction to connect to PGAdmin. Now, I have PGAdmin installed on my machine. So as you can see, you say register server, and this is where you enter those connection. I have already entered them here, and this is so I have all these databases. So I could come here and say create database, right? So let's say I want to say create a database called sales, right? And I can save, and look, my sales database got created. I can come back to my portal and click on databases, and notice my sales database is created here. So I can go to I can do things like I can come here under the sales database. I can look at schemas. The public is a schema that's available. Under table, I can see there are no table. I could just say create a table, and let's say I want to create a table called fruits, and let's say it will have columns like say ID, and maybe this is of type serial, right? And I can say not null, it's a primary key. I can say, let's say fruit name, and I can have maybe varchar, or it says character varying, right? Let's say that's also not null and it's not a primary key. So if I just save, notice now I have my table. So on that table, I can say, I can script an insert, right? So I can say insert into this, ID is a serial. So maybe I will only enter a name. I'll just say enter a fruit named apple. Okay. So if I can just execute it here, and then I can do script, let's say select script, and say select ID name from fruits. And if I run it, notice I get the result. So this is connected to my database, so I can do all my database development in PGAdmin, but I can still have those created on Azure. uh, Beside that, there is replication. You can, for each PG, the PostgreSQL flexible server, you get up to 5 replicas. So you can create those replicas and the endpoints here. There are some server parameters you get to set here, right? There are, there is a maintenance window you get to set. So because it's PaaS, Azure would do the patching and fixes, bug fixes, right? Or hardware refresh. So if you select system manage, so they would just happen without your knowledge. But if you say custom schedule, you can select a particular time when those maintenance would happen, so that you are kind of prepared that maybe Sunday midnight you are not using in the app. So if they do the maintenance at that time, you are okay with it, so you can schedule that here. You can set up your high availability stuff, like enable disable high availability, how many zones you want. Under backup restore, we saw before how many days of retention you want, what backup you want. If you have a backup, you can do restore here. Once you have been using your database for a while, you would get advisor recommendation that maybe you should be doing this for security, maybe you should be adding this index for performance tuning. Under data encryption, this option is usually available when you're creating the server. Since I created, this is already grayed out, but you have the option of a service managed key or customer managed key. For many enterprise users, it's important to use your own key, so you can select customer managed key. You can select the type of authentication you want. You can add a defender for cloud, which will proactively monitor your database uses for anomaly or any type of attack. Now there is a query performance insight, which will kind of tell you, what are your long running queries, what are the weight statistics, what are the top queries. Now I haven't enabled these yet, and I just created it, so there is not much insight available here. But as you start using the database, this will be available. Besides that, you have diagnostic setting where you can you can decide to have your logs, or the audits and logs go into something like log analytics, right? And besides, you have your web workbook and all the things that are very normal to almost every resource on Azure. um, Another ops thing I wanted to show is that if when you go to the database, or yeah, so when you under overview, you have the option to upgrade. Remember I said you can select a lower version if you wanted. Now I selected the current version as 14. Now I have the option here to upgrade to version 15 if I want, but that's all manual. So you can take control of which major version of PostgreSQL you use and when you want to upgrade. Okay, so that's flexible server. Let's now go to the PostgreSQL, the Cosmos DB version. Now, if I go to Cosmos DB, you'll notice that the overview section is very similar, but it has few things that are different. It gives you a quick start for just a tutorial on how to get started. It has something called scale, since Cosmos DB is multi-node. So here you have the option of increasing the number of nodes to kind of horizontally scale your database. You have things like you have the basic connection string high availability, but you also have coordinator node parameter. Remember, in flexible server you had server parameter. Here you have coordinator node parameter. So coordinator is your main node that controls all of your data nodes. For that node you can control all the parameters here. This is kind of equivalent to the server in a flexible server. You also get to select your maintenance window. There is something called a shared rebalancer. So among multiple nodes, you can set up rebalancer to decide how you want to balance the load. You can do data replication across the globe through geo replication. And under overview, you have the same option of upgrading to the higher version. Okay, so that's all for the demo. Okay, so that was my overview to PostgreSQL on Azure. I hope you find it useful. If there are any specific questions you have, please leave in comment. If there are specific problems you have that you want me to help you with, you want me to create a video and kind of show you the solution, if you're willing to share your use case and your data, I would love to work with you. uh, you know uh, I want to make sure the videos I create are adding value to you. So if you like this video, please subscribe, like, hit the bell icon, add comments. That will help me on my YouTube reputation. I am looking forward to collaboration with you.